Hi, my name is Daniela Marrero, and today I'll be debunking the scientific theory of evolution from its core. The theory of evolution began in the late 19th century by an English naturalist named Charles Darwin. The theory of evolution, according to Charles Darwin's book, The Origin of the Species, is descent with modification. The idea that species change over time, give rise to new species, and share a common ancestor. Evolutionists believe that every living thing started from one point and slowly evolved over billions of years into all the different species and variations we see today through natural selection. Evolutionists call this the tree of life, which shows the relation between all living things from an evolutionary standpoint. So, if all life forms connect back to one point, where did life begin? Evolution tries to teach that everything evolved from a primordial, chaotic, or random state of matter, and that chemical processes produce the first life form from inanimate matter. First of all, there is no possible way for any human to test or observe the origin of life, therefore, any evolutionary theory of the origins is just that, a theory. A non-scientific theory at that, since science has to be observable and testable. A number of prominent evolutionists even accept that evolution is not testable.
We are condemned to live only for a few decades, and that's too slow, too small a time scale to see evolution going on. Richard Dawkins. We see nothing of these slow changes in progress until the hand of time has marked the lapse of ages. Charles Darwin.
Another problem with the theory of evolution is that even the simplest life form would be too complex to form from a random process of mere chemical and physical reactions. In order for something to be classified as living, one requirement is that it must have at least one cell, which requires many complex structures such as membranes, ribosomes, mitochondria, and more. Living things also have to have DNA and RNA molecules which house all the instructions for development, growth, reproduction, and much more. The complexity of a cell combined with the DNA and RNA of the organism are responsible for so much information in very specific orders and patterns that believing it all started from a process that no one can ultimately conclude really happened would require an immense amount of faith. Also, in order to accept evolution, one would have to accept that the impossible happened, that order came from disorder, that the order of complex cells, DNA, plants, animals, humans, and life all function properly as a result of chemicals and proteins that randomly formed together on an earth that was a result of stardust and chemicals that came from nothing colliding by chance. Chaos. The second law of thermodynamics even states that total entropy can never decrease over time and is constant if and only if the processes are reversible. Referring back to the tree of life, evolutionists believe that every living thing came from one organism that slowly evolved into all the living things we see today. So technically, evolutionists can say that humans are somehow related to trees, or that tiger could somehow be related to a clover. In order for this to be true, there would have to be a change of kind or species along the process of evolution. This is called macroevolution, and here's why it's wrong. Most evolutionists will try to prove the theory of evolution and macroevolution with natural selection, as it is believed to be a key mechanism of evolution. Invented by Darwin, it is a process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. This does not support macroevolution at all. The process of natural selection is testable and has been observed for years. We have seen it within different animals and people groups. These observations of natural selection, however, have all been within the same species. Never has anyone observed one species of animal becoming another species of animal. Therefore, anything evolutionists say they know about one species evolving into a new species is based on what they think they can find from fossils, a process that has been proven faulty because carbon dating, used to date most fossils, can only go back thousands of years, not millions or billions of years, which is how long ago evolutionists say life began. One of the main examples evolutionists use to try to prove the theory of evolution is Darwin's experiment on finches. Take a look at this video of Ray Comfort, a Christian minister and evangelist, asking some very intelligent evolutionists for an example of macroevolution.
Yes, we have that in action actually in the Galapagos.
Could you give me one instance?
Yes, we have an example from a group of birds called Darwin's finches.
You take a look at the difference between the finches on the islands that all started out. I mean, that's very, very observable.
But that's not Darwinian evolution. There's been no change of kinds. What did the finches become?
They become genetically new and anatomically new, recognizably different species.
So they're still finches?
Well, of course they're still finches, yes.
So they're not a change of, there's no change of kind.
Little birds that he had observed that...
What did they become?
Their beak shapes.
They're still birds.
Yes.
3 finches that turn into different types of birds.
They're still finches.
Well, for example, Darwin and his study on evolution of the birds on the island that he went on to there.
Their beaks changed?
Their beaks.
They're still birds. There's no change of kinds. That's within the kind.
Just evolution on the beaks.
So that's called adaptation. It's not Darwinian evolution. There's no change of kinds. There's no different animal involved.
As you can see, they all try to use the example of Darwin's finches, which does not prove macroevolution, but instead microevolution, because throughout the changes the finches experienced, they still remain finches and never changed kinds, only adapted over time to their environment. Once you realize that it is impossible for the earth and life to have started the way evolutionists say it did, and that one kind cannot become another kind, the whole theory of evolution becomes a lie. Evolution requires faith and is not based on fact. What the complex structure and order of life ultimately points to is an intelligent creator. Chaos cannot create order, non-life cannot produce life, and the impersonal cannot create the personal. The only answer is that God created everything and everyone exactly the way He said He did in Genesis. To believe you are just a result of a random process with no real purpose in life, but only to live and die and return to the ground, is a sad and meaningless life to live. But God created each and every one of us in His image, unique, and with a purpose. He loves us and gives us hope. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So what would you rather put your faith in? The idea that nothing created something, or that something and someone created everything?